Good morning, good morning, good morning. Welcome. So today we're going to have a great discussion and we're going to watch the film Dear America, a letter from Black women. So I'm thrilled, really, for this film and this important discussion that's going to follow. I first met the executive producer at an event early this fall, and I happened to catch part of the film as she was screening it right before my panel. And so during those conversations, it really became clear that this would be a powerful and timely film to bring to the Hofstra community. So let me tell you a little bit about Dear America, a letter from Black women. What this film does is it illuminates the untold story of Black women while exploring their pivotal role in shaping the nation's political landscape and history. They do this through a contemporary exploration, discussing the fight to protect democracy that they have long upheld. So, from scholars to activists, this feature film amplifies the diverse voices of Black women as they mobilize to defend their rights and the future of America, democracy in the face of rising threats. So, we're going to first, how it's going to work, we're first going to view a portion of the film, and then we'll have a panel discussion where we'll talk to the two filmmakers, as well as our very own Professor Katrina Sims and our honor student, Leilani Levayen. Okay, but I will introduce everyone after the film, so stay tuned. As we're turning the screen off, so I do hope that you enjoy that, and we will have a survey a little bit later to for you to share your feedback with the filmmakers. But without further ado, I do want to introduce the filmmakers and our amazing panel that we have today. As I said earlier on, when I first met Chanel at the Black Women in Long Island event, this film, as she described it, and when I was able to see a portion of it, I just really knew that the conversation that followed this film would be really important for the Hofstra community. So today on this panel, we are going to have Dr. Katrina Rochelle Sims, who's an associate professor of history. She is the faculty in residence of the first year community here at Hofstra. Her research and teaching focuses on Black studies, women's and gender studies, Southern studies, and the history of healthcare activism in the United States. We also are going to have honor student who's a junior, Leilani Levayen. She is a junior in our Rabinowitz Honors College. She's an English major with a minor in history and psychology. Her areas of interest are child development and Black studies. And then we also have the filmmaker, the executive producer, Chanel Barnes McLeod. Chanel is a native resident of Newark, New Jersey. She serves as the chief executive officer of Project Ready and the executive producer of Be Ready. Project Ready is a nonprofit social justice organization. It works very closely to improve the opportunity gaps and improve life outcomes by empowering communities to demand social justice through a series of civic engagement campaigns. Chanel has successfully channeled her experiences to become a social activist, empowering hundreds of women to take on leadership roles. You've seen her in the film, and within their own communities. As a leader in Project Ready, Chanel has worked to closely close the opportunity gap and improve the life outcomes of Newark's residents. She also works in local schools, demanding excellence and helping the residents do the same in their activism. Her work is centered on growing a base of local voters, mobilizing the voting base to turn out at local elections, and developing future leaders to improve the city schools in future. We also have associate producer, Dr. Brittany Kirtland. She serves as the Chief Program Officer of Project Ready, where she oversees program strategy, implementation, and strategic partnerships. She has earned her bachelor degrees in psychology with a minor in criminal justice from Hampton University. She also has a master's in general psychology and a doctorate in educational leadership and management. In addition to her role at Project Ready, she's been in higher ed for over a decade and a leader in the K-12 programming and professional development at Achievement First, supporting over 2,000 educators. So let's give a round of applause to our panelists today.
Should I turn your mic on? Okay, there you go. Hello. It should be on. Press and hold. That's the limits.
While we wait for that, hi everyone. Hi.
Hello.
It's good to be here.
Well, it's so good to have you. Look, let's just dive in. I have I think, contemporary and relevant question. As my students know, I'm a lurker on social media. And what I've been witnessing is an interesting, I think, point for us to consider given what you have provided us in Dear America, right? So Dear America captures Black women's long, storied participation with civic engagement and activism, right? At all levels of government and entrepreneurship, American society and culture, right? You capture that in the 20 minutes that we were able to engage with your doc. But there has been a trend of Black women saying, I'm done, right? Hashtag 92% have really, I think, spoken to what some of your interviewees acknowledged, which is exhaustion, frustration with being taken for granted, right? And as a result, you have prominent figures like Tiffany Cross, right, who was the host of the Cross Connection on MSNBC, recently saying, don't come for me for any assistance. I am done. And so my question to you is a two-parter. The women that you interviewed, did they share with you the moment where they experienced what Fannie Lou Hamer talked about, being sick and tired of being sick and tired? And if so, what was the thing that pulled them back into the movement, that sort of gave them the stamina to re-enter and re-engage with their particular issue or movement or the problem that Black women had to solve in that moment?
It's a great question, and I love the way you teed it up because you are accurate that I think probably on November 6th, 92% of us, including myself, were exhausted and ready to rest and ready to stop and ready to just take a full step back.
Right.
If I'm honest, I'm pleasantly surprised in this moment that Dr. Kirkland and I could sit before you all and still tour the film. I think the vision that I had in executive producing the film was trying to create a piece of history that would transform the world and would expose the world to what I think we've all been exposed to over centuries upon centuries, which is that democracy is important, paying attention to it is important, and above all else, Black women have been paying attention to it for far too long. And I, in my own mind, and I haven't said this, in my own mind, I thought that in the creation of this, we might be able to see different outcomes on November 5th. Just in my, we all play our part, right? And I felt like this was the part that we played. And when the outcomes turned out to be quite different, I didn't even think that we would still be touring this film at this point. And it was after going to, we did a few things actually in Yonkers right after, and then Long Island, which I'm going to cue to in a minute. And that actually, it was being at Hofstra, and I kid you not, we were here, we were working with Judith Jock, who's the CEO of Black Wall Street and also Black Women in Media. And I said to the audience, I was like, I don't even know why we were here. And the audience at the moment was like, we need this film now more than ever. And so as someone who also interviewed on this film, I'd say that the hope actually came back to me at this very university. I want to take a moment because actually Judith Jock is in the audience. Hi, Judith. Judith, can you come real quick to the mic? Yeah, girl. We're going to do this. Because Judith is also a part of the film, as you know, and I think it could be good before we get to you, Dr. Kirkland, to just have her also give her response to this question. We run a show called Dear America with Chanel Barnes on iHeartMedia. Judith is going to be on this Sunday, and we actually talked about this very question. So if you don't mind, I just want to give her a moment to share this. Hey, Judith.
Hey.
You look good.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
So, the question.
Yes. Can you just run it?
I'm sorry, I was not prepared. I'm just here to
just
support.
broad strokes, Judith. How did you get back to hope, assuming you did, get back to hope and reinvestment in America, given the state of the nation?
Yeah.
I think
That is it.
Yes.
Yeah. So, it's an everyday trial and getting that hope, but you have to, let me start from saying that I am the founder of Black Women of Long Island as well. And I was really inspired to creating that platform because of the need of representation, and we all know what that is like, especially as a woman and a woman of color. Furthermore, when it came to the results of the election, as a Black woman, it was very difficult to see the future for yourself. I'm a mother, I'm a wife, I'm a sister to Black men and boys. So it's scary to see what the world is going to be as a Black person. But when we look at the communication amongst ourselves as Black women, we understand that the hope lies in us and the allies that support that vision. So we are still doing the work. We're resting, and as I told Chanel before, we're resting strategically, where we're still doing the work. We are still pouring into our communities and pouring into those who poured back into us. And we see the future in our children and the youth and those of you who are inside the room here today. So the hope is constant. Yes, the discouragement does happen, absolutely, but it's nothing that our ancestors did not face before, and we are well prepared. So
thank you, Judith.
Yeah.
Sticking on the topic of how the women you interviewed maintain their commitment to political activism, how would you suggest for young Black women who this may be among their first time voting to maintain that attitude of feeling empowered in their voice and their vote when they may not feel that the results of their vote and their voice were listened to?
I think that's a great question, and it's one that we've gotten consistently while prior to the election, after the election. And so my first thing would be to say that the understanding of what your vote really means and in which ways it counts directly towards things that are impacting you. And so one piece that I'm very big on is the voter education piece, and starting with the concept that all politics are local. So yes, we vote in the presidential election, but a lot of people were saying, like, how do you keep motivated to vote when your direct vote doesn't count because of the Electoral College? And so my response is, by remembering that all politics are local, when you are voting in your local elections and you're voting in the elections that are off cycle, those are the folks that are making up the Electoral College, which then are making up who is going to be the president. And so understanding specifically where your vote counts, understanding that it's more than just voting in a presidential election, you need to vote in all elections, and hold your elected officials accountable. Because ideally, we're voting for them based off of things that they said they could do to make a better impact in our life. And if you don't see that happening, then you need to hold them accountable. Go to your local Board of Education meetings, go to your mayor and council meetings. Here, as students in the college, go to the board meetings here. Let the trustees of the school know what you appreciate and what you don't, because if you are not being that voice and advocating for yourself, then no one's going to know what you need. And if you don't continuously do it, then no one's going to listen. But if you gather and organize and really make your voice known and realize the impact of your vote, then that's how things get to be moved and changed in the tide.
I'd like to also think that a lot of the discovery of voting comes with the discovery of voice, and the discovery of voice comes with the discovery of self. So if you are in a moment where you can be thinking through what is your personal North Star? What do you want? What do you need to see in America in order for America to feel safe for you? And if you are in moments and spaces where that doesn't exist, what does it look like for you to start to exercise your voice and your will and your ability to tell your own story in order to get comfortable with voice, get comfortable with vote, and then from there, I think the next step is to get comfortable with advocacy. The final thing I'll say is some people in this room may already be totally woke. Like, you already know your voice, you know what you want, you've been voting, and perhaps and you've been advocating. Perhaps the next step for you, truthfully, is to run for something. And you can start that off here at Hofstra. You can start that by joining local boards. Dr. Kirkland is on the school board here in New Jersey, so you can start there. We did not get to see what I think some of us wanted to see in this election. That said, I don't think we give enough voice to some of the firsts that we did see across the nation in hyper-local elections. We saw a lot of first-time African-American women senators take seats. We saw a first-time Asian American take a Senate seat. We've seen these things. And so if we're thinking about a next step beyond just kind of the basic level civic engagement, I'd say that you should just do it.
I want to stick for a moment with Leilani's point around empowerment. And it makes me think about the ways we talk about Black women's activism and how resilient they are, right? How strong they are. But rarely do we ever talk about the process of how these historical figures or these visible symbols became, right, those sort of resilient, fortified, strong, right, contributors to society. So as a filmmaker, how important was it for you to personalize these stories and these narratives, to sort of show their vulnerability, right, to show their humanity, to make it really personal, connecting to their family sort of experiences?
Yeah. It's a good question. I think it started with when we were casting for the film, telling the Black women specifically that we wanted to talk about them. And that's actually not something that many of them, and you saw the folks who we featured on the film, many of them had never actually been asked directly about their own personal story. We're often put in positions as the talking head for someone, the front face for something. Rare are the moments where someone is saying, what is it specifically that you want? The concept, Dear America, a letter from Black women, was strategic in that it is a very, love letters are personal. They are deep. Sometimes they are heartbreaking. Sometimes they are incredible. And just in the essence of how we structured the film, what the film was about, and in the ask of, we want to hear about you, every single person who we interviewed, every Black woman, they broke down and cried. Every single one. And it's because no one had ever asked them, well, what about you?
Yeah, I think a lot of the narratives and themes that you hear in the film are related to the untold story of Black women, the impact that they've made on overall politics and democracy. And this film is the beginning of being able to tell that story. And so I hope that for Black women and allies, they take this as a piece of understanding the impact that Black women have made and how pivotal of a role we've played in all of the different facets in society: democracy, organizing, getting out the vote, advocating, all of the things that kind of, in a way, have been overshadowed. And so I think this film really helps to bring that all to light, so we understand everybody's importance and how we make this all work.
A major point that struck me in the documentary was the acknowledgement of the significance of education. And as mentioned in the documentary, it's the removal of critical race theory and the banning of books. How do we reach Black youth and inspire them to demand their access to education when they're not receiving it in their educational environments?
That's the first time we've ever been asked that question. So thank you so much. Actually, Project Ready, the social justice organization that we run, it started because we wanted Black and brown parents and families to see the through line in between voting and in between civic engagement, voting, and what it means to actually exercise your vote, to be on a quest toward educational equity. So education is, kind of a theme that runs through this because it is an anchor for us. We work day in and day out with Black and brown families, and I say the beginning of it, not just for the students but for the families, is actually having the access to the resources and knowledge about what is happening with your student, and then from there for your student to have that same access. I'll give you an example. In Newark, New Jersey, only 27% of our students are reading on grade level. Only 27%. And likely 80% of the parents and families do not know that their student is not reading on grade level. And so I honestly felt like we could have explored education a bit more in this film, but I think the beginning of pushing the needle on education for our youth and for our parents and families is for them to demand the access to the resources and tools about what exactly is happening in their child's education.
I think when you talk about how is it reflective in education, so I'm an adjunct professor. I sit on the board. I'm the president of the Board of Education in my town, and so I have like a deep-rooted sense within education, and I would say that there is a lot that's happening that is kind of glossed over. It's always like it feels like there's not enough time, or you have to cut this or cut that, and so to really make sure that we're explaining diversity and inclusion, making sure that we're bringing it into the classroom, I think it starts with events like this. So for example, we've launched this college tour to be able to bring this film to colleges, to start this conversation around the importance of voting, the impact of Black women in politics and democracy. And I feel like doing these kinds of events is the first start to making sure that the information is getting out there, that we're still igniting the flame around what it means to be diverse and inclusive and what it looks like. Because it's not just a word, it's an action as well. And so I think bringing these types of events to schools, having students come and attend, doing panels and talks to kind of really dig into the conversation is like one of the first ways to begin to be able to keep this conversation relevant, given all of the changes that are happening on the federal level.
So I'm going to ask another question, but I want to let our audience know that you can line up to ask your question at the microphone, please, so you can prepare yourselves. Your documentary, Dear America, clearly centers and is rooted in this claim, this stake that Black women have on democracy and patriotism, right? And we know that there has been a trend, right, in American society right now with Black people declaring very proudly, like, we built this joint for free, right? And we have seen it with Beyonce Bowl, right? And the ways in which she claims all of these icons, right? Whether it's rodeo or the American flag, we saw it Sunday with Kendrick Lamar, right? How he claims these icons around Uncle Sam, the American flag, right? These iconographies that are just so important and so intrinsically and authentically sort of a part of that American, right, culture and experience. So my question is, why was it so important for you to really, like, center democracy, center this political discussion from the beginning, right? You say that everything is politics for Black women. Life is politics, right? Why was that important? Why was that framing, like, so just central to your capturing of Black women's experiences?
It's a great point. I think Ray, who actually winds up being one of the first people alongside Judith, that we interviewed when we were starting the film, she said it best, where she's like, we're not doing democracy because we want to do democracy. We're doing it because it is a matter of life or death. Every day, every decision that is made from the White House all the way down directly impacts so many of us, but it in my mind, for me as a Black woman, it especially impacts me because I am a part of a silenced group of folks, a silenced group that has been pushing in order to make sure that we can have the democracy that I think we all want to see, an equitable democracy, a democracy where all children are able to receive a quality education, a democracy where women are able to make decisions over their body. We've been pushing for this. But when it all boils down and you start to look at the disenfranchised groups and how some of these policies actually hit home for us, it devastates us in a larger way than it does some of the other groups. I'll give one other example. Before we launched doing the film, and by the way, we've never done a film before. This is like... Literally, this is our first time ever doing a film. If you had asked me years ago if I was going to executive produce anything, I didn't even know what an executive production was. But during COVID-19 is actually when I started to see when they go and they make a policy, and all those policies around COVID-19 actually hit the home of Newark, New Jersey. Our city in the state of New Jersey, the largest city, by and large, suffered the most from COVID-19. We lost the most people in the city of New Jersey, and a lot of that is because we did not have the appropriate institutions, tools, resources, funding, you name it, in order to support us through a very tragic and turning moment in our history. And so that's just one example of why ensuring that Black women could be at the center of this was really important. One other thing I'll add, and this is just on, you know, for those of you that may be interested in like graphic design, creative, or anything like that, a lot of the creative work I leaned in really hard on because I wanted our faces to be in the epicenter of these bold images that represent America. When we went to Philadelphia, we had created an image where the Black woman is at the center of the Liberty Bell. Her face is coming out of it. If you look at our movie poster, you see a series of Black women of all different ages, and the America is over the eyes. And so even from a creative perspective, we wanted to finally do for Black women what should have always been done, and that is put us in the focus.
Right. Chanel stole all my phone. So I just no. I just want to also add that this film is nonpartisan, and so I know that it came. it took us about 9 months of filming. It was still when Biden was the Democratic nominee. And so to have this film come out, and we were in the editing room when Kamala Harris received the nomination. And
You were
so
like, what?
yeah, it was just like, oh, this is timely.
Right.
And so it almost kind of helped with it to kind of see how the election would play out. And in other parts of the film, we update that too, as far as like kind of what happened, snippets from what each person was saying. But I think seeing how the election played out and talking about the themes that are in the film, it's authentic, but also sad because those themes are still happening currently in everyday life. And so I think that this film is going to be timeless because it helps to really shine a light on the inequities. And I think also it could be the beginning of a docuseries.
Yes. A quick preview into the future.
Yes.
Okay.
Hello, my name is
Hi.
Dorcas Samaru. I'm a journalism graduate student. This was honestly an amazing
Okay, hold on. Can we
watch.
all give a round of applause for her? I love to see us in journalism, right? I love it.
Thank you so much. But first things first, you kind of stole like what I wanted to ask, but I can still go on with it. And something else came to my mind like while you were talking. So this question is actually for creatives because I'm Nigerian and personally I love to tell stories about my faith, my culture, women, sexual abuse, our rights. And I believe that, we have that voice like even in the different kind of things that we do because storytelling brings us all together. Whether you're a chef, you're an artist. So how can people in this room, you're a filmmaker, also participate in active civic engagement in whatever field they find themselves in and still have that voice to show representation to women of color, or whatever that is going on that needs more light to be shed on. Then my second question that I wanted to ask, oh my God, give me a second, you just spoke about it. But answer the first question. You said something about it, and I was gonna come to that.
I think, again, a lot of what, just where I am in my own life as personally and professionally is thinking about this exercise of like, what is my voice? What am I communicating? What am I lending my voice to? And then how am I pushing that forward? And I think for a while, my vantage was, okay, we can do it through writing or we can do it through spoken word. And I think it was very limited. Now I think we're in a world where you can very well have very deep feelings about something that is socially unjust to you. And through photography, through art, through song, through spoken word, through creating a video and putting it on YouTube, through writing, there are tons of different spaces where you can actually begin to exercise your voice. And a lot of what we have access to now, a lot of the people we featured on the film didn't have access to then. We have a segment that was completely cut out from the film where we explore the dynamics of social media and how social media is so dangerous and it could be a spreader of a ton of misinformation. All of that is true. But imagine a world where everyone in just this classroom or auditorium alone decides to actually use their social media platforms in a way that's comfortable for you in order to start to weigh in and change the world. We can change the dynamic of this brilliant, big, massive platform if we all just make a concerted choice to do so through whatever creative form of expression works for you.
I would say also the idea of advocacy. So advocacy isn't just related to a political realm, right? You can advocate for anything in any portion of your life. So whatever industry you're in, whatever job you're in, whatever project you're working on, advocating to make sure that it's done correctly, that you have the tools and support that you need is still that underlying piece. So I would still say, think of it as you're advocating for what you need to be able to continue to get your work done. And so that is a key thing that's going to transcend all industries.
We're going to go one question.
Oh my God.
It's okay, you can find us after. Don't worry. We're not in a rush.
So one question
Hello.
Hi.
I'm Connor. I'm a sophomore journalism major as well.
All right, go Connor.
The thing I wanted to ask is, recently I've noticed, actually my Professor Britton did a study few years ago covering the suburban news desert that is Nassau County, and he found that there's a couple of communities that were specifically not getting covered by Newsday or ABC or any of these stuff, including Hempstead and Uniondale and Freeport and other communities of color. So he launched the Long Island Advocate, which students now cover the important issues to these people.
Amazing.
He found that these other ones only really covered crime, which misinterpreted and misrepresented the people of Hempstead and Uniondale. So my question to you, also being from New Jersey, I was wondering, do you feel that local and national media covers the issues that are important to black women, or no?
No.
Can you expand on what they do, and then potentially what issues you wish would be covered more?
Oh, this is a good one. So no, I don't. And if I'm honest, that's one of the reasons why we then not only launched the film, but Dear America with Chanel Barnes is on iHeart, but it's on 710 WOR, and go figure, I'm the only black woman on their national news network right now. And in some ways that's exciting, but also in some ways it's tragic. And so I think the first step is we need to see more women of color actually in these newsrooms, and actually weighing in on what news should be covered. And we have to also make space for that. The only way to make space for that is either for us to be able to get on these networks or for us to be able to just create it ourselves. And there are spaces where black women can either create this, or black women and their allies can come together, Connor, and create this space and make sure that we're telling the stories. When COVID happened, I know I referenced COVID or not, but it really was a big deal for me. I was like, the stories that they're covering about COVID, like, this is not what I need to hear right now. I need to hear specifically, I am pregnant with my third child. If I go into the hospital, what does it mean for me if I am diagnosed with COVID-19? What does it mean for the father of my children? What are these logistics? None of those things were being covered, and we still see it. And so I think there is a desert, there's a news and media desert around the issues that are important to us. I'd even say that there's a news and media desert around the information important to youth. I think that they have youth figured out, but actually they really don't. And so the only thing that I can think of is if there's no table that anyone will bring you into, similar to what we did with this film, you have to just create it.
Yeah, I would say a lot of the points that Chanel said, I 100% agree with.
We were just talking about this in the car. We're about to buy a newspaper in New Jersey, in Roselle.
Yes. Because we literally just had the same conversation about how the news is skewed, and a lot of the time what you see in the news and the media, it could be one clip or one thing, but because it's so highlighted, it makes it seem like that particular problem is persistent across the entire community. It happens every single day, and that's not the case. And you see, I guess it's more, I don't want to say, clickbait, right? As far as what's going to get people's attention versus not. And so it just seems like all negativity is usually highlighted, and we really need to start changing the narrative to be more balanced, because there's so many positive things happening in the black community, in all communities, that I feel like it's not really highlighted by the media. And I feel like that would be the first step in changing the narrative.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
The new term is rage bait.
Rage bait. Okay.
Rage bait.
Get people angry, they'll click on it and they'll read it and they'll interact with it. It's called rage bait.
Oh.
I don't like that. That's my fiance. All right, sorry, go ahead.
Good afternoon.
Hello.
Hi.
I'm PJ. I'm a history major, a sophomore here. I had two questions, but I'm gonna go with my first one because my classmate Leilani had a major part in developing this one. What exactly is the significance of informing the public on the history of the experiences of black women in America using media made by black women themselves?
Well, I want to first say that this film was executive produced by me and written by me. Our director is a white woman. And there was a lot of great debate about that. What does it mean to have a director as a white woman? Why should you? But we ultimately made the decision that one, she was fully qualified, knew what she was doing, but also that we were excited to go on that journey with her. Our producers are two women, one from Honduras and one from Colombia. And then our associate producer, Dr. Kirkland, is black. And so I don't know if it gets at like your specific question, but I want to name that overall we had decided a diverse group of women going on this journey to reveal Black women, our pain, our struggle was by far one of the most important things that we could do. Not just for us as Black women, but for the other women who they say all the time, they're like, this was a history lesson for us. And there's so many things I didn't know that now I do know because I joined the experience. All that said, I think it's important when you are telling the story that is germane to you, that you open up space for diverse groups to join you in that journey, because the human experience is an exceptional experience, and I just think too often we block each other off from that, opposed to being open to it. I don't know if I answered your question directly, but I just got caught up in the fact that like it wasn't just Black women who created it. We created a really diverse group.
Yeah. I think to Chanel's point, that diversity definitely was, I think, a great factor. And then I think also when you're talking about any group, like specifically, so I think you said, why is it important for Black women to make stories about Black women, right?
Is that what you asked?
Yeah, essentially.
Okay, sorry, I missed that. Thanks, Dr. Kirkland.
No problem. I think it's important because it makes the story authentic, and also it makes it clear that you're telling all versions of it. It's not going to be skewed. It's not just by one. It's not just by one perspective or one showing. It's an all around, well-rounded story, and it's authentic. So this way, as a Black woman, knowing that I had feelings invoked by the film, or I felt that the film related to me, I knew that other Black women who were going to come to see it would also feel like that, and I knew that allies who came to see it would get a real perspective of what is happening in the Black woman's world. Because essentially, now that we've moved past the election, and we kind of base it around this too to be like a historical teaching point. And so that's why I mentioned the docuseries, because there might be more. But it's really about making sure that the story is told authentically, which is why it's important that every room that's telling any story about anyone should be diverse, but also make sure they have people in the room who can make sure that the storytelling is authentic.
Well, one other thing I can add now that I hear the question out, a lot of the behind the scenes is when you're asking people questions, you have to know that the questions that you're asking are ultimately going to frame up how the narrative comes out. And so Judith, I don't know if she remembers this, but we had first started, and one of the questions that was proposed from one of our consultants was, what does it mean to be a strong Black woman? And when Brittany and I heard it, we were like, like that has to come out immediately. This whole narrative about us needing to be strong, like we reject that. And I think we had to stay as Black women in the space. We had to make sure that we challenged any of these types of stereotypes that came up about us, so that when you all viewed the film, you could view something that's true to us, true to you if you are a Black woman, or at least true to you if you know other Black women, versus something that takes us in an entirely different direction and misrepresents history.
So we have time for one more question.
Actually, I was going to say, get maybe two to three people to ask a question, and then maybe you all can answer.
Decide who, yeah, okay.
Yes,
Okay.
about 5
Yes.
minutes.
Don't have me
Thank you.
decide who to
No.
Thank you, PJ.
I'm not going to make that decision.
Go ahead, Doc.
So you go, Dallas, and then ask your question, and then we'll take two more.
And then-
Sorry. They will be here
That's
after.
it.
If you have a couple
Sorry.
minutes, you can talk to them after.
Yeah, a group answer, yeah.
Okay. Hello, my name is Dallas Jackson. I'm a senior journalism and sports media major here at Hofstra. And my question is essentially for those who are already politically engaged and politically active. What is your advice to them when it comes to engaging with people who are kind of on the outskirts, who may not be registered to vote or are not particularly interested in being politically active at this point in time?
Okay, so hold on, hold that.
Answer yet? One more.
This is how I'm short. I'll just yell.
Basically,
so for a little bit of context for me, I'm white, but I'm very blessed that I have adopted siblings of color. And for me, it's really easy to empathize because I can kind of hear about Black issues and see my brother and how that might affect him. I've met a lot of people around me who are like, who can't have empathy because they've got no one to connect to like that. So I'd say for people who aren't Black, how do you get them to empathize and connect with a story that they can't necessarily relate to firsthand?
Perfect. And then
I'm
more.
sorry, I didn't hear the last.
How do you get people who are not Black, how do you encourage them to empathize
and be connected?
And get connected?
My name is Jayla Hudson. I'm a biology and psychology double major here at Hofstra. My question to you is, what are the statistics of violence against Black Americans following major steps forward in representation in cinema and television?
Okay. Oh, that's very specific, Jayla.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Okay, so that is it. I'm sorry. Zach, okay.
Get this last student. We just want to get all the students now.
Hi, I'm Zach Outlaw. I'm actually a film major.
Okay.
And this question actually revolves around my major. So I have a YouTube channel. So I try to promote my films and my TV series on that. And my question is, in what ways has evolution of social media influenced the perception and representation of Black excellence?
Okay, perfect. All right, so I'm going to wrap up. Before, though, I wrap up, on your way out, if you have feedback, and please give them feedback, you'll see around the walls is the QR code and on the table in the back. So please just take a picture of it, and please give these amazing filmmakers your feedback of the film. So I want to kind of wrap up.
The first question was pulling in people who are not traditionally involved in politics.
How do you get people to be allies?
And those who really can't connect with the story, don't really care.
Someone wanted data. I don't have that. But I want to find it for you.
The last one without the actual data is kind of a simple question.
I don't have a question.
Okay, we'll talk after. Okay?
Yeah.
But so the last question was
about Black excellence and
About social media.
Social media.
Yeah.
All right.
Do your best.
The first one.
About politics. I'm sorry, I forgot the first one.
No, the first one is how. I'll shoot at the first one. You can piggyback. When we launched Project Ready in Newark, New Jersey, we realized in a local Newark school board election, only 5% of people were actually voting in the school board election. And this is a $1 billion budget. It was completely unacceptable. By the time we finished with the work with Project Ready, we were able, through our members, to occupy 51% of that electorate. And the only thing that I attribute our ability to do that over the course of 4 short years, because that's how long it took, is that people actually are not lacking the wherewithal to vote. People are lacking the actual resource to know when to vote, who to vote for, and what does it mean if you vote for that person. And so it's in my opinion that you just need to, you yourself can learn these things and then go and work with folks to understand this is how voting will directly impact you if you do not vote in this local and national election, and then following up with them to make sure they actually get to the polls.
Awesome. I'm going to end it there.
No.
Okay. You're still going to answer those questions if they have a second.
I'll get to the Black excellence and some of the other. Yeah.
I just wanted to make sure that I could properly say thank you so much. I think I speak for everyone how incredible this was. Like I said, Chanel, thank you for those conversations we had. They were great, and they led to this for sure.
Okay.
But thank you so much. Thank you, Dr. Sims. Thank you, Leilani, Dr. Kirkland, and Chanel McLeod. This has been amazing, and thank you so much. Again, if you want to, please talk to them after. They're going to finish up that question. But please, please, please take a picture of that QR code and share your feedback. Thank you.